All right, so we are in Parshas Ki Seitzei, and we are learning about the mitzvah of the first year of marriage. The pasuk says, and this is in Shishi, first parag of Shishi, the sixth reading of Parshas Ki Seitzei, parag of Daled pasuk Hey. Ki yikach ish isha chadasha. If a man will take a new woman, a new wife, lo yetze batzava, he shall not go out to war. V'lo yavar olav l'chol davar, they should not pass over him for anything. Naki iya levesa shana echas, he will be free to his household for 1 year. V'simach es ishto asher lakach, and he should make his wife happy that he married. So, this is in contrast, by the way, to what we learned about in last week's Parsha, where a man who betroths a woman goes to the battlefield, and the Kohen announces, if you betrothed a woman, you can go home. And a man who planted a vineyard and didn't eat from it yet also goes to the battlefield, and the Kohen announces he can go home. And a man who built a house and didn't live in it, also the same thing. Now, in those cases, the reason he went to the battlefield, knowing that he would be sent home, is that he actually was not sent home. He was to stay on the supply lines. He still had to help the soldiers and so on. However, in this week's Parsha, it's talking about a man who has actually gotten married. I mean, he's not just betrothed, he's actually married. Lo yetze, he doesn't even go out. V'lo yavar olav l'chol davar. There are actually different interpretations what it means. They shall not pass over him for anything. Rashi says it means lo yavar olav dvar hatzava. He should not be involved in any matter of warfare. Not only on the battlefield, but like we said, even on the supply lines. The Rambam and other commentaries say that it means he should not be involved in any public service. That means in the city, if they had a roster of people to guard the gates, or I don't know, sweep the streets, whatever it is, they had jobs that were done to service the community. Lo yavar olav l'chol davar means that he was exempt from those jobs. The Targum Yonasan ben Uziel actually has a bit of a different interpretation. He says, Lo yipik b'chela, he should not go out to war. That's lo yetze batzava. De lo ye'era aloi kol mida'am, in order that nothing should happen to him. Lo yavar olav l'chol davar is explaining why he shouldn't go out to battle, so that nothing should happen to him in his first year of marriage. It would be very difficult and so on.
Because that's the same reason we give originally for the other ones, and that's where they work in chefs or whatever.
Yeah, according to him, it's not addressing. According to him, it's not addressing why he doesn't. He's not on supply lines. It's not addressing that.
He's not going to die if he works his.
Yeah, no, it's not addressing that. He doesn't have to. Honestly, he doesn't. He's not tied down to the Medrash of Chazal, because Targum Yonasan is another opinion of Chazal. And in fact, he also says a different opinion than Chazal in the translation of Chadasha. Ki yikach ish isha chadasha, if a man takes a new wife, does it mean new to anybody? That means never before married. That's what the Ibn Ezra suggests. And that's what the Targum Yonasan also says. It's a charata besulta, right? A virgin, never before married. So it's only for that, that he's exempt. However, the Gemara, both the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, do not understand it this way. They say that Isha means any wife, and it includes a person who marries somebody who was previously married, whether a grusha, whether an almana, a divorcee, or a widow, whether even his own brother's wife, if his brother passed away without children, the whole thing about Yibum we read about in this week's parsha as well, he also goes back. And Chadasha only means that she is Chadasha loy, she is new to him. That means it only exempts a Machzir Grushasni. If he was married, got divorced, and then he remarries his ex-wife, then he does not have this exemption. So the pasuk says, "Naki yilevesei shana achas," he will be free to his household for 1 year, and he should rejoice with his wife that he took. And those that count the mitzvahs actually count this as both a negative mitzvah and a positive mitzvah. The Sefer HaChinuch says, do not take the chassan out of his house the entire first year. That's the negative side of it. Even though, by the way, the Gemara says, laver olav b'shnei lav, and there's two negative commandments here, lo yetze batzava and lo yaver, don't go out and don't be passed over, meaning to say don't do anything. So whether it's both in warfare or in warfare and other public service, either way, the Gemara says, laver olav b'shnei lav, and you get 2 lavin, but nevertheless, it's not counted by those that count mitzvahs as a separate lav. The Rambam explains that sometimes the Gemara says that we get 2 lavim for something. It means the Torah repeats it twice for emphasis, extra punishment, whatever, but not actually counted in the Torah as a separate lav. But there is a positive mitzvah, sheyisma chasan hamishta shana rishona, that the chasan should rejoice with his wife for the first year. Mishor sheha mitzvah, says the Sefer HaChinuch. What is the root of this mitzvah? Because Hashem, Allah b'machshavti lefonav, livrei so'ilam. Hashem decided to create the world. Hashem's desire is that the world should be populated with good creatures that are born of male and female that mate in the proper way. Because nus, right, improper relationships is disgusting in front of Hashem. Therefore Hashem decreed on the nation that he chose to be called by his name. We should sit with the wife that is specific for us, to establish children, for 1 full year. Full year, by the way, means that it doesn't finish on Rosh Hashanah. You know, Abba Rosh Hashanah, we read in the Masechta Rosh Hashanah, there are some things that finish on a certain date. Like the king could become the king on Chavtes Adar, and on Rosh Chodesh Nisan it's his 2nd year. And the same thing with all kinds of different things, planting fruits in terms of the 3 years of Arla and all kinds of things. That sometimes a day could be a year, sometimes 30 days could be a year. Here, it has to be Shana Echas, a complete year. Like the Chinuch says, Shana Shlem, a complete year, because the whole point of it is not to be yoitza, not to fulfill it and take it off the box. The point is to actually increase the love of the husband and the wife and to spend time together.
So a leap year like this, it's 13 months or 12 months?
That's actually a discussion in the Mefarshim, and they point to various sources where it says 12 months. Various sources. I don't think they have a clear proof from the Chumash, but in the early sources they use the word 12 months. I think it's the Tosefta actually that repeats the word 12 months like 3 times, both for the wife and for the field and for the house and so on. So they say it's 12 months. Anyway, to become accustomed to her nature, and to have a desire for her, and to have her form and everything about her in his heart. So the love of them should increase to the extent that naturally any other woman and all matters relating to other women should be foreign to him. The nature of a person is to desire and to love what he is accustomed to. And with this, it will distance a person from a foreign woman, and it will turn him towards the woman that is appropriate for him in his thought. And therefore, the children that will be born from them will be kosher children, right? Because when the love between the husband and wife is proper, and he's thinking only about her, not about anybody else, and so on. So the children will be proper children. And the world will be graceful in front of Hashem. And this is what they said of blessed memory. This applies to every new wife, whether it's a Basula, Almana, or Yavama, because the point is, she's not new to him. She's not new to any man, but she's new to him. In terms of their relationship, they have to kindle that love so it should last. All of them are appropriate for this reason, but not if he's remarrying his ex, because in that case, he already has established that relationship with her. Question?
So it seems that he doesn't have choice to go, even with her permission.
That's actually a discussion he has right here, actually.
How would the husband be able to control the train of thought and the process of have like a good train of thought while he's with his wife?
Well, in general, we believe that we have control over our thoughts. That's just a belief that we have. Now, we know that sometimes a thought can come into your head momentarily, but you have the power to overcome it and turn your mind from it and move on. The thoughts, thank you. I'm okay. The thoughts that come into our head beyond our control, we're not responsible for. But we are responsible to not dwell on them and move away from them. But the point of this mitzvah is that it should not happen in the first place, hopefully, because their relationship will be so established and stable that they won't have it. So here, by the way, I saw somewhere, I forget the name of the sefer, but it's a sefer about marriage. I think Chaim Press is the author, and he quotes, I think it's Shamshon Fall Hirsch, who explains that the idea of having a balanced family, loving parents, and so on, to bring up the next generation of the Jewish people is a national need. It's not a private thing, just between a man and his new wife, that they are just, going to have their own little private honeymoon for a year. I mean, it is a private honeymoon, but it's of national concern that they establish their home on a firm basis so that the children who are born into that home will have this nurturing family, and therefore it overrides the national concern of warfare. Warfare is to protect the Jewish people. It's national, but this is also national. So it's an interesting point.
What type of war are we talking about?
Actually, we're not talking about Milchemes Mitzvah. We're talking about Milchemes Rishus. Want to increase their land or whatever it is. Milchemes Mitzvah, it says that even a Kala leaves from her chuppah and a chassan from his room and so on, or Kala from her room, a chassan from the chuppah and so on, which is pretty much what they do in Israel. Which is, unfortunately, I mean, most of the wars, they are Milchemes Mitzvah. It's like survival.
When do we see ever a time that we try to increase the borders of voluntary war?
David HaMelech.
For where?
There's a Gemara in Brachas that discusses David HaMelech's Seder Hayom. We mentioned it by a class a few weeks ago. David HaMelech would get up at midnight and he would he would learn the first half of the night and doze off a little bit. Midnight he would get up and say Tehillim. In the morning, the Chachamim would come to him, the advisors would come to him and say that people, there's not enough parnasa going around. So he would say they should get parnasa from each other. So he said it's not enough. A little koimetz, a small measure, does not satisfy the lion. So he would say, okay, go fight a war, start a war. So they would say, really, start a war? They would discuss it with Achitophel because he was the wise person. They would consult with the Sanhedrin and then the Kohen Gadol, and then they would give Yoav the green light to start a war. David HaMelech used to do it. I mean, he conquered.
Was captured land.
He conquered land.
That's not part of it.
That's correct. Aram. Aram is the Assyria, exactly. He conquered it, and because he conquered it before he finished conquering biblical Eretz Yisrael, there was a question. Fully had the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, because maybe he didn't do it in the right order. So, but that's that we see.
There's still an enemy aspect to them.
Once you start rolling with them, there can become enemies.
No, obviously you're not going to. David HaMelech didn't start with his friends. He had allies too. He didn't start. Okay. So, point is that based on the chinuch, by the way, we do see the continuation of the parshas. The parsha previous to this one is about divorce. Man takes a woman, doesn't like her, gives her a get. She gets married to somebody else. Maybe she gets divorced or widowed. He can't take her back. The whole thing. That's the parsha of the get. And in contrast to that, the pasuk is saying, kind of to preempt that and make sure it doesn't happen, you're properly, treat her properly, stay with her, and be besimcha with her, and hopefully that will develop a relationship that won't allow that to happen.
By a son, you still can't disinherit the son.
I'm sorry?
And the son from that marriage you can't disinherit. You have to still give him the double portion.
Yeah, that's also true. That's in the first. That's in the first section. Yeah.
The parsha starts on Cheshek for the issue she calls Torah. I guess issue she wasn't a married woman, which issue she had.
She could have been. I mean, I don't think the soldiers asked her.
The top of the officer relationship in the Cheshek was. He was less with Cheshek, not with other, which is the Muslim wife has for her husband. He went backwards.
I mean, there's a lot to say about that one, but too much. Yeah, too much to say for now. So, speaking of the continuity of the parshas, by the way, the Pardes Yosef brings down that the next section, which on the face of it doesn't really fit in, Lo yachbol rechayim v'rechev, ki nefesh hu choyvel. Do not take as a collateral the lower or upper millstone. You need a collateral. Don't take something that a person uses to produce their food. Ki nefesh hu choyvel, because you're taking their soul. They depend on it to feed themselves. What's the connection? So he brings, also from Targum Yonasan actually, that this is referring to somebody who interferes in the relationship between a husband and a wife. Speaking in a euphemism, because Rechaim sometimes is used in terms of a wife. Titchen achar Rechaim, we find that. And Rechev is the rider, that's so to speak the husband. It's also a euphemism. Lo yachbol, do not damage that relationship. Ki nefesh hu choyvel, because you are destroying the future souls that could be born into that family. So a person who interferes in the shalom bayis of a couple, it's not just people that are alive, it's the future generation that he's affecting. So it's a very serious thing. I mean, nowadays, you can interpret it to mean the in-laws, if you want to put it into a modern language. If you want to know what the
Targum... married 2 months, so.
Yeah, I don't mean any, I mean, hopefully the in-laws are good and everybody's getting along and everything. But in the terms of the Targum Yonasan, we don't really experience this nowadays, but I'll tell you what he actually says. Lo yehevi gvar asar chasnin v'chalen b'chorshin. A magician should not practice magic that will prevent the chassan and the kala from being together. Some kind of voodoo stuff.
So we see by LA Sign, the children, right? The children stopped the...
Right. Yeah, that wasn't voodoo, but yeah, that was a problem. That was a problem, yes. But that's true. That's a similar thing where he delayed they would delay the sacrifices of the women, causing them to stay apart from their husbands. And in terms of Rabbanim, if we can say such a thing, Rabbanim have to be careful about that too, not to delay answering Shilas in such a way. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
that delays, because sometimes it affects it can literally affect the birth of a child if the mikvah night is delayed unnecessarily. Now, sometimes if that's the halacha, that's the halacha, but it shouldn't be done for convenience, they didn't get a chance, or for forgot, or whatever. So that could also be relating to this. Okay, so here's the Sefer HaChinuch, who says something which is difficult to find a source for. It's actually in the previous mitzvah Tavkuf Pei Aleph. So here the Chinuch says, Here it is, sorry. Laleches, Kleimer laleches b'masois rechoikim. To go on distant journeys. When it says that the chassan should withhold himself from leaving his house for the first year, Kleimer, it means laleches b'masois rechoikim. He should not go on distant journeys. Now, what's distant? A few days. I'm not telling you exactly what that means, but in the next mitzvah he says, the person who transgresses on this, actually yamim rabim, many days. If he stays away from her many days, I don't know how many, yamim shnayim, so maybe rabim l'shlosh, it's 3 days. I don't know, but many days is transgresses on this. But this is something that we don't find in the Talmud Bavli or Yerushalmi. In the early sources, we don't find this. In the discussion about this mitzvah that we have in the Gemara, it's talking about him not being drafted by the army. And like the Rambam says, for other public services. But it never talks about him not being allowed on his own to go out. It doesn't say that. It's directed to the king or to the general, whoever's in charge of the army. Lo yetza b'tzava, don't take him out. Lo yavar olav, don't call his name for anything. Allow him to be with his wife.
The public services are services that are within the city for a single day, or they're multiple day?
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. I believe in the context, it means outside of the city. And the Radvaz actually says that. I'll get to that Radvaz soon. So this is something new. And the Radvaz argues on it. Radvaz Reb David ben Zimra, who was a leading Torah scholar in Egypt, had a big yeshiva, wrote a lot of responsa, very, very early Achron, perhaps even in the time of the Beis Yosef, I think. Anyway, the Radvaz says, I don't know where the Sefer HaChinuch got this from. Where did he get it from? I mean, you can't make up your own interpretations of mitzvahs. I mean, we don't do that. The Minchas Chinuch asks the same question. We don't find that in the Gemara. We can't make our own pshatim from the pasuk. I mean, you can make a pshat, but not a halacha. You can't make a halacha from a pasuk that we don't find in the Gemara. It just doesn't work that way. Rak Pirush Chazal, we have to accept what Chazal gave us, the tradition. And I haven't found it in the Rambam. I don't remember it being mentioned in any pasuk that the chassan of the first year cannot stay apart from his wife for many days, like the Chinuch says. And this matter needs to be investigated. That's what the Minchas Chinuch says. In fact, following along that way of interpreting the pasuk, the Hamek Davar of Naftali Tzvi Berlin, the Netziv, in his Pirush on the Chumash, he says, don't think that this is a mitzvah that the chassan has to make the kala happy the first year. You don't have to listen to this, by the way, if you don't want to. This part. Don't think it's a mitzvah for the chassan to make the kala happy the first year. That's not what the pasuk means. What it means is, allow the chassan to make the kala happy the first year. It's not a mitzvah for them to do it. It's instructing the king or the general, don't take him out to war, don't draft him for public service, say, allow him to be at home, so that he can, if he wants, hopefully, make his wife happy. But he says it's not actually a mitzvah. So the Radvaz says, so you'll say that it's the Rambam, which it's not in the Sefer Hayad, by the way. The Sefer Hayad, right, which is the Rambam in the Yad HaChazaka, where he brings more halachas. There he doesn't mention about leaving the house at all. He just mentions about not leaving for war or to...
Well, Sefer HaChinuch is a couple hundred years later, huh?
Sefer HaChinuch is definitely after the Rambam.
Right.
I don't know exactly how many years. And he models his Sefer Mitzvahs on the Rambams. He follows the Rambam in, I think, 612 out of the 650 mitzvahs. Oh, so that's the thing.
So that's what we said.
That's the thing. Even though the Rambam does not mention it in the Sefer Hayad, nevertheless, he does mention it in the Sefer HaMitzvos. The Sefer HaMitzvos of the Rambam, which is originally an Arabic work, right? Translated into Hebrew by Ibn Tibbon and later by others. So that's where he mentions it.
So the Egyptian Rav, we say there's no source, then he has a source.
Oh, so the Radvaz says, as far as the Sefer HaMitzvos, who says, listen to the words of the Sefer HaMitzvos, the Chassan himself is warned from leaving his house for business during the first year. That's a quote from the Sefer HaMitzvos. Radvaz says, the translator got it wrong. That's not the correct translation of the Arabic. You know Arabic?
My son does.
I'm sorry?
My son does.
Your son does, okay. So he actually quotes it in Arabic, but I can't read it. But he says the translation from the original Arabic is that the chassan is also warned not to leave his house and go on the road. What it means is, here's how he interprets what the Rambam means. Don't think that it's only the king who is instructed not to call upon the chassan, but if the chassan decides to go on his own to battle or to public service that he's allowed, no. The chassan is also not allowed to go on the road, i.e. on the roads that we're talking about, which is to battle or to public service. It's just telling us that this mitzvah is both on the king or the general and on the chassan. But he's not adding that it applies to the chassan's own private affairs. That's not what the Rambam means. So this is a very strong question that the Radvaz has.
If the negative mitzvah on the chassan, does the positive mitzvah also on the chassan? And the single chassidut would definitely exclude going away for long periods.
Well, not necessarily. The Radvaz says on the contrary. The guy doesn't have money. He's sitting at home, starving. His wife is starving with him. She's not happy at all. She'd be much happier knowing that he's off making a parnasa for the family. And in fact...
But that's if she agreed.
Oh, that's going to be a separate discussion. But he says that as far as, well, maybe some chassanim have enough money. They don't have to worry about it. So he says, but the Torah is not a separate Torah for rich and poor people. If it's a mitzvah, it applies equally for rich and poor. So the truth is that could be an answer, what you're saying. Mechila can work, but that's machlekes. The Sefer HaChinuch actually says, towards the end of this mitzvah, he says, a person transgresses on this, and he leaves her during the year, to stay apart from her for many days, even with her mechila, bittul aseiza has transgressed on this asay. If he wants to go out for a mitzvah, or to go for a simcha and come back in a few days, I don't know how many that is, it would seem that doesn't stop the mitzvah. And some say that if she forgives him, it's mutter in any case. So if you say that forgiveness works, then the Radvaz's question is not a question. Because if she's starving, of course she's mutter. And she wants him to go. Right.
Akiva left for 24 years.
I don't know if it was his first year, though. I don't know if it was his first year. He learned Aleph Beis with his son before he left. There's a medrash that he learned. He brought his son to the cheder, and he learned Aleph Beis with his son. So that's what it says. That's what it says. Yeah.
So at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I guess.
You're not speaking to him.
I guess. Unless there was another wife. Was that the same wife?
There were two, but I think it was later. I don't know.
Later he married.
No, he had to have a wife early. Also, he had a wife early because there's a story with her Elazar ben Hyrcanus. That Rekiva worked for Elazar ben Hyrcanus for 3 years before, and he had to go back to his wife before Yom Kippur.
Oh, that was a Rekiva?
Yeah.
How do you know? The Gemara doesn't say.
The Shiltus says it was a Rekiva.
Ah, I see. Interesting. Okay. So I don't know if it was the first. I don't know if it's a proof because maybe the kid was from the first wife. I'm not sure.
Still, he still had to be there for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but I don't know from the second wife if he was.
So he had to come back at some point.
No, but I don't know if he left in those 24. If he left for those 24 years, I don't know if he had a child with Rachel before or not. I don't know. It could be the child was from a previous marriage. I'm not sure. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, just talking about this mitzvah, by the way. He mentions the mitzvah that you could go out for a mitzvah. This is, by the way, based on the fact that a milchemes mitzvah is pater, is chayiv, excuse me. If a person is going to a mitzvah war to protect the Jewish people, or just to conquer the basic Eretz Yisrael, the land of the 7 nations, the Chassan and Kala are not exempt, like we said before. So we learn from there, I mean, the Sefer Chinuch doesn't spell this out, but the Chassam Sofer spells it out. We learn from there that just like he can leave for a war of a mitzvah, he can leave for other mitzvahs. And with this, he explains the custom many people had, that they got married, and they went off to yeshiva out of town. That's the way it was in the olden days. It says in the Gemara Kiddushin, Halad v'halahu, that the minhag in Bavel was that they got married and they left their new wives and they went to learn in Eretz Yisrael. I assume they came back to visit here and there, but that's because it was for a mitzvah.
That's where all the most of the learning was involved.
There was a thing. There was an exchange student thing that you could learn better if you were out of the house.
Maybe the
At the
wife
head.
supported that.
That's for sure. That's for sure. That's for sure, actually. That's for sure, actually.
Longer engagements could have been in between.
No, this was after they were married, because the whole point is the Gemara says that this is the right way because you won't have a Yetzer Hara. That means you have a wife that you're actually married to, even though she's not with you, but your Yetzer Hara is diminished because you know you have a wife. So it's actual marriage. But anyway, in terms of what you were saying that the wife forgives, actually, the Chassam Sofer brings another point. He says that if a Chassan and Kala get married in the middle of a war, then the Chassan continues fighting. Presumably he was fighting before. He gets married. He has to continue fighting because the Kala is marrying him at a time that she knows that he's in battle. So she doesn't expect to get this first year arrangement. So he suggests that the same thing applies also to a koilel guy who in those days would learn beforehand and would continue to learn afterwards. And when they would get married, the Kala understood that was going to be the arrangement, so she forgave it and so on. And actually, the Meforshim point out that what the Chassam Sofer says is stated more or less in the actual Talmud Yerushalmi. That it says in the Yerushalmi, if a person betrothed his wife, that it should take effect in 12 months, and then in 12 months he is in middle of the war, he goes back. So the implication is only because he made that arrangement beforehand, and it's effective then, that's why he goes back. If he had made it at that time, he wouldn't go back, because he's already there, so it doesn't supersede, what he's already in the middle of.
But it sounds like that Tom Sofer, he's learning it a different way. If you could leave the Basar, then you could leave for any other mitzvah. But it seems the mitzvah for having children would override going for the other mitzvah, except for Torah learning.
First of all, having children, doesn't take,
Until it takes.
she could become pregnant, then he can go.
Once she becomes pregnant.
I'm just saying, Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, Alav Shalom, got married in Montreal, and soon after they were married, went to establish the Chabad Yeshiva in Chicago, and he didn't come back until his son's bris, as per the instruction of the Frierdiker Rebbe, previous Chabad Rebbe. So I'm just saying, his wife was pregnant. Obviously, it was like a month or so after they were married. And the Alter Rebbe, if I'm not mistaken, also went to the Magid. I think it was during his first year of marriage, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. But he got permission. He only stayed because he got permission. So the point is that in defense of the Sefer HaChinuch, the Sefer HaChinuch is not the only one who holds this. So the Radvaz, who is saying, where does he get this from? I don't know the answer where he gets it from. Maybe there was an unknown medrash that he had, but he's not an outlier, let's put it that way. First of all, what the Rambam says in the Sefer HaMitzvahs could be interpreted both ways, so that's not 100% clear. But we have other Rishonim that also say the same thing. We have none other than the Sefer HaBatim. And in case you don't know who the Sefer HaBatim was, that's because he's not very famous. He's one of the Sfarim that never quite made it and was only discovered more recently and is now becoming a bit more well-known. It was written by Rav David ben Shmuel HaKochavi, who I think it's Estella. Estella? Is that a star? Yeah, that's a star. So he's called HaKochavi because he came from a city called Estella. Anyway, that is in Provence, in the south of France, and they were known as the Chachmei Proventia. There are a few letters between the Rambam and the Chachmei Proventia, many letters actually, between the Rambam and the Chachmei Proventia. They were big followers of the Rambam. They always wanted to learn from him. They wrote about a lot of letters, he wrote a lot of answers. So he was one of the scholars from there, and he followed the Rambam's ways in terms of philosophy, because it was a big controversy at that time if Torah scholars should be involved in philosophy or they should just learn pure Torah. And he was one of the scholars who had the view that you should learn about philosophy and the sciences and so on and so forth. Anyway, he was a colleague of Rav Menachem HaMeiri. He's another one whose writings were not well known. They were only published, 100 years ago or something. They're not quoted in the Beis Yosef or in the Achronim. They only came to light much later. Anyway, he says the Chassan is also commanded regarding this. Meaning to say it's a mitzvah on the Chassan himself. Although, according to him, yeah.
Well, he's not saying a different Sefer mitzvah.
Actually, yeah, that's true. According to the Radvaz's pshat, and that's not a real proof.
By the husband not leaving his wife for a year, it's also a mitzvah because I'm assuming that I'm not sure, I'm asking Rabbi, the husband has a business trip, maybe one day, and it's really parnasah. Can you come one day and come back?
So one day, it seems, is not a problem anyway, because the Sefer HaChinuch says Yamim Rabim, many days is a problem. And if she forgives, then it could be it's allowed even more than that.
She come with? No.
If she comes with, for sure. But he does echo the words of the Sefer HaChinuch in terms of the reason for it. He says, Kavana mitzvah zu mevu'eres, lekavanas ha-mitzvah kedemes, uba mitzvah ad toim hashana kadei sheya'arech amidosem yachad v'yiskarhu deyosehem, v'az tishlam ha-kavana b'nisuin. Basically about increasing the love between them. Mm-hmm. So it does sound like he actually wants them to be together, not just about public warfare and so on. In addition, we have the Yereim. The Yereim is Rabbi Eliezer Mimitz, Rabbi Eliezer of Mainz, who was also one of the Rishonim, one of the Balei HaTosfos, and he also considers it a mitzvah on the Chassan. I don't have his words in front of me, but he follows that opinion as well, as does the Charedim. The Charedim is already a later sefer, a Talmud of the Arizal, but he quotes it as well. But it is interesting to note that it is not quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. There is no siman in Shulchan Aruch about this, but nevertheless, the Chaya Adam does bring it down, and the Chachmas Adam, and
so you're off.
No, I didn't say that.
Nice. Parsha B'Shosef.
Follows the Beis Yosef. I mean,
This is Parsha.
the Beis Yosef is the Beis Yosef, but there are Rishonim who hold of it.
Is he actually ready to talk about it?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. But I will share with you some of the thoughts about this from Rabbi Eliezer Waldenberg, the author of the Tzitz Eliezer, who has a very nice tshuva explaining different aspects of this mitzvah. So first of all, here's a very interesting point. The Gemara says, it learns from the pasuk that just like the chassan who actually gets married is free from being involved in the war, even the supply lines for the first year, the same thing is a person who actually moves into his house and who actually starts using his vineyard, as opposed to the person who built it or planted it and didn't use it yet, which was in last week's parsha, where he goes home from the battlefield, he stays on the supply lines. A person who actually moved into the house and actually started using the vineyard has 1 year off. So the Chassam Sofer asks, how do we understand this based on the reasoning of the chinuch? The chinuch says, you get a year off to be with your wife, to basically increase the love between the husband and the wife. What does that have to do with a field, vineyard, a house? Not a field, excuse me. A vineyard, a house, what does that have to do with it? So he explains, based on the reason brought in the Taimei HaMitzvahs of Rabbi Nachum HaBavli, also not a very well-known sefer, but he says another reason for all of these mitzvahs. He says the chassan is not going to be thinking about the battlefield, he's going to be thinking about his wife. And the same thing, the guy with the new house and the new vineyard, his mind is going to be distracted. So we send him home. We don't want you to be distracted. Focus on what you're doing. If you can't focus, go home.
The wife and even the supply line.
That I'm not sure. That I'm not sure. So the point is that he says that based on this, we understand why the chinuch does not bring this halacha in reference to the person who has a new wife, a new vineyard or a new house. Because the Sefer HaChinuch is writing here that he can't go out for schoira, out for business trips. Well, that only applies to the wife. Because for the wife, in addition to the reason of not being distracted, you have the reason of actually increasing the love. Whereas the other two is just about the distraction. So for a business trip, that doesn't apply.
Distraction.
You just moved into a new house, and now you're thinking you're not gonna enjoy it. You might die. You're gonna be nervous about it. You're not gonna be able to focus on.
I mean, you're worried about dying anyway.
That's true. That's true. You are, but it's an added distraction. It's an
Yeah.
added distraction. Anyway, the soldiers of those days.
You'd be worrying about dying anyway. The house, I'm not worried about. The vineyard, you just made a major investment in the ground, and you're gonna lose your crop. You're gonna lose everything you just invested.
Just build a house.
The house still gonna be there. It doesn't need.
Yeah, but you are the one who worked on it. You're not going to get it. It's like chaval. I mean, the truth is that soldiers of those days were high level people. I mean, they couldn't have had any sins. It means they didn't sin. They didn't even speak in between the tefillah and shaliat and the shalosh. I mean, they didn't even have small sins. So hopefully they had trust in Hashem. But nevertheless, other things could be distractions.
The Rambam, when he wrote in Arabic, was mostly Hebrew letters.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Gaon actually wrote in Arabic.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, as far as the halacha lemaisa, now that the chassan and kala are gone, as far as the halacha lemaisa, he brings that in fact, even though some question it, like the Radvaz, like the Hamek Davar, the Aruch HaShulchan also questions it, but nevertheless, we do find that the Achronim deal with it. They don't ignore it. They consider it a real issue. The Ben Ish Chai, Shulchan Ezer, and others discuss it as to when you're allowed to leave, if you're allowed to leave, and so on and so forth. So they seem to hold that you should follow the Sefer HaChinuch and actually stay in the house.
Do they give a time for how many days?
I'm not actually sure. He does bring that the whole concept here is relating to an oisik b'mitzvah being pater min mitzvah. And this explains the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, if a person builds a house in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, don't think he goes back, because that's not a mitzvah. Living in Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. Living in Chutz La'aretz is not a mitzvah. I mean, you can do mitzvahs in your house, but it's not a mitzvah per se to own a house. The same thing goes for a vineyard. And the Magen Avraham actually says that the Chanukas Habayis is not a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael, in Chutz La'aretz, only in Eretz Yisrael.
But why is it a year-long mitzvah?
Why are you involved in it for a year? Is that your question?
Yeah.
He's understanding that when you just start something off, you need to establish it to make it last. Something, a new vineyard, you're just starting to use it. If you don't maintain it, it's not gonna stay. Even with a house, a new house, the plumbing, the electricity, you have to.
But you can hire workers to run your business.
Okay, you can hire, but if you do it, you're oiseh b'mitzvah. You can hire somebody else
You
to do
think
it.
with the wife, after the year, she has to worry about the baby, and she doesn't care about you.
That's besides the point.
And she has another focus, she's what to keep busy with.
I hear you.
The vineyard, I understand, the house, I don't feel it.
Got to buy a house in Eretz Yisrael, maybe you'll feel it. So, based on this, he says, we understand why the Rambam only mentions that you're not freed if you build a house in Chutz La'aretz, or you built in the diaspora, in other words, or a vineyard in the diaspora. But he doesn't say that if you got married in the diaspora, that you're not exempt. And the reason is because then you are exempt. If you get married in the diaspora, that is a mitzvah. So therefore you're exempt from the mitzvah of war. But a house or a vineyard in the diaspora, that's not a mitzvah. So that's why that doesn't exempt you. All right, now, there's a surprising opinion of the Charedim. We mentioned the Charedim before.
Student of Arizona.
Student of Arizal. Al-Khaziri, no, Azkir, sorry.
According to them, you need to say Kriyash Shema the first year after you get married. I mean, what is the...
Oiseh b'mitzvah, part of the mitzvah is if you can't fulfill both. The first night...
Vineyard, you could fulfill both. You could just have a work in your vineyard, you can go to war now. Why can't you fulfill the mitzvah of Yisrael itself? You go to war, you time it a lot more. You're expanding Eretz Yisrael.
I don't know, in general, when you have the concept of Oiseh b'mitzvah, part of the mitzvah, I don't know if when I say you can fulfill both, I mean that you can fulfill both. I don't know if there's a chiyuv to hire somebody else to do it. Even if you can, I don't know if there's
What
some
if you're
chiyuv.
already hired?
Maybe. But then again, I don't know if the pasuk. Obviously, if the pasuk says it, it means that it wouldn't be understood from the general rules of it's based on that. But now the pasuk says it, so I assume it applies anyway, even if you already hired them.
Didn't answer the question earlier, whether or not he's obligated to stay home. Even with Mechila.
Even with what?
Mechila from the wife. Even if the wife takes.
So there's the Sefer HaChinuch's own opinion seems to be that Mechila does not work. That's the opinion he says Bistan. Like, even with Mechila, you nullify the positive mitzvah. And the concept behind that would seem to be that if the whole thing is to increase the love, she could forgive, but it's not the same as actually living together. On the other hand, the other opinion says that Mechila does work, and perhaps, sometimes she actually would want it, and she would be happier if he does what he needs to do. But it's worthwhile mentioning a famous Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim says, "V'simach es ishtai." You heard this Baal HaTurim?
No.
I didn't tell it to you in Chassan classes. The Simach is Begematria 364, because the Simach Hasishta is indicating that a man is supposed to make his wife happy for 364 nights a year, besides Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the only night that he's forbidden from being with her by Torah law. This is like, wow. First of all, we have the concept of a nida. How are you going to have 364 nights? And anyway, there's an oina. The Torah says it's not recommended more than once a week, twice a week. I mean, only a batlan who has nothing better to do is instructed to be with his wife every night. So what does he mean? 364 nights. And anyway, the commentaries say, we don't find anywhere in Chazal that a man's instructed to be with his wife more often in the first year than any other time. I mean, maybe that would be his natural inclination because it's new and exciting, whatever, but we don't find that in the Torah as being true. So what does the Baal HaTurim mean? So a lot of interpretations were given, but based on the Yereim, I'm sorry? The Yereim, one of the students of the Arizal, he wrote a sefer of mitzvahs, but he divided it differently than most. He divided it the mitzvahs of the hands, mitzvahs of the eyes, mitzvahs of the feet, mitzvahs of the whole body, mitzvahs of sometime, this time. He has a whole interesting way of dividing the mitzvahs. Anyway, so he says that a man is obligated to be with his wife even if she is pregnant. As the pasuk says, "V'simach es ishtay," he has to make his wife happy. I mean, in other words, the mitzvah of procreation is not just for babies; it's also to make the wife happy.
I thought they were saying doing dishes during 64 days a year.
So the point is, what does he mean? Does he mean only the first year he has to be with her when he's pregnant? When she's pregnant, what does that mean? So the commentaries say, specifically the commentary of Be'er Yehuda by Chaim Yehuda Segal, whatever that is, Pirush on the Charedim. He says the Charedim learns the pshat that this is a general thing. He should be free to be with his wife for 1 year, and then a general thing. A man should keep his wife happy. General thing, not just in the first year. In the first year, he should have more time to do it. Give him off from his other pursuits so he has time to do it. But in the rest of his life, he should also make sure to keep his wife happy, and that's the meaning of the pasuk. Even if she's pregnant, if she's nursing, she can't have a baby right now, he should nevertheless keep her happy. And based on this, we can understand the Baal HaTurim. As far as keeping your wife happy with this mitzvah of being together and so on, so it can apply 364 days a year. Of course, if she's in Nida, it's not going to apply. It's not talking about any given year. It's not the first year. It's just in general. It can apply 364 days a year. Nowadays, anyway, Tisha B'Av is also forbidden. But in those days, by Torah law, this mitzvah could be fulfilled 364 days a year. All right, I hope you learned something from the shir today.
So the Monday is Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur by Torah law forbidden. The night of Tisha B'Av is also forbidden by rabbinic law.